The story begins with a young man, torn within between who he must be for the sake of himself, and to the costs of the best dictator he must be. This young man, this boy, this naive child ceaselessly questioning things which he has no right to question, and therefore must question, even if his answers are folly unto Albert himself. Quentin is asked by an old woman, blessed with the years of self-loathing which develops the zenity necessary to tell her tale, to chronicle what he is perhaps no better equipped to chronicle than she, and in the lacking of this use we find that he is the perfect man to do so. Rosa Coldfield, a woman bitter and scorned, as the interesting ones tend to be, wishing to absolve herself of that which makes her herself in the moments before her demise, calls upon Quentin so that she might perpetuate her flaws while at the same time absolving herself of them. Quentin, shocked that she's chosen him to take on an endeavor which she's more than capable of taking unto herself, tries in vain to establish her rationale in doing so, never realizing that she's not chosen him but simply chosen, and that in questioning such motives he isn't questioning Rosa Coldfield, but rather his own worth. Quentin visits this Rosa Coldfield in the home she's locked herself away in, marinating in her disdain for a man who is now long dead, and for whom there is not a man alive save this bitter woman who might have known him, and she tells Quentin of her life as it serves to vilify Thomas Zutpen, whose own love, for a lack of someone to better share it, becomes the bitterness that she holds. From this slanted old crop, Quentin acquires his first taste of the subjective foolery that will comprise his history, Thomas Zutpen's history.
Quentin Compson, after having learned of the man Thomas Zutpen and how his rise to affluence affected those around him, discusses what he's learned with his father. His father, who as nature has dictated by the penultimate version of Quentin himself, had, of course, already begun piecing the life of this man together, following in the footsteps of his father, General Compson. General Compson, having known Zutpen on a far more personal level than Miss Rosa Coldfield had, was not subject to the muddying of reasons that Rosa had been, and so his account of Zutpen's life had included the necessary inferences that one must make to truly understand the importance of the man's actions. Mr. Compson, Quentin's father, had made his own inferences, developing the story as logically necessary from the point at which his father had left it, and so as he delivers his account to Quentin, it is far more fleshed out than a simple telling of events. Quentin, like his father, as the natural progression of the faculty of reason demands, expands upon what is forbade in their pursuit of truth, and becomes ever closer to understanding what Zutpen's life had been, in itself. Now, through the generational betterment of reason and its application to the history he's collecting, Quentin has begun to establish a true order of events.
How foolish they are. Quentin, returning from his trip home to Harvard, a supposed institution of higher learning, decides that the truth of the story itself is not only malleable, but the word of the individual accounts may be played with by the historian. Quentin, and his doppelganger friend Shreve, rehearse what has been learned, assigning no information and imposing their views on the history, though they not realize how removed they are from the men of past.
Foolish. It is the way it must be. If there is a purpose to history, it is to act as a learning tool, so that we might come to understand what intents have led us to where we are now. The boys are trying to understand what may have caused Zutpen to live the life he did, and in turn the rationale of those who undid him. If a historian has any job, it is what these young men are doing, Nietzsche.
Of course we must learn from our history, Kant, but might we not effectively learn from the subjective accounts recorded exactly as what they are? As soon as a historian injects his own truth into the narrative, we lose sight of the notion that the truth exists between individual accounts, as the space between has already been filled.
Yes, it has been filled, but it has been filled with the truth, which is exactly where you claim it is to be found. If a historian does not fill in these gaps, no context is given as to how events or the accounts of events has led to our current state. If, as a society, we wish for our capacity for reason to develop over the generations as it must, we cannot rely on our current minds to learn from those furthest removed. We should provide for the next generation the most current rational interpretation of things.
It has not been filled by the truth, simply by a truth. The most rational interpretation of historical means, currently, are not necessarily the correct ones. You speak of the development of reason over time, yet neglect to consider that those of past eras did not use the most modern form of reason when they made their judgments. When you make these suppositions of reason, do you know to add vis-a-vis to a history of its progression?
I can't even right now, Friedrich, I can't even.